PCA, wait, it stopped the broadcast. Okay, PCA Google Hangout number 1 for PCA course number 4. I got it. I've got to categorize these because now my YouTube channel has like tons of these hangouts, and I always tell people, click on the one where I'm wearing a gray shirt. That'll be the right one. So I'm trying to get more technical than that. Anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate you joining, and I'm Kelly. It's nice to put faces. I'm a very visual person, so if I can put faces with names, it helps me out so much more. There's 18 people in this course this time, which is the most we've ever had. So even more so, it helps me to connect a face to a name. And I really try very hard to keep these to 1 hour. I try very, very hard not to go over. So if for some reason somebody has a question that you have to go over the time, at any time, if you guys have to go, just feel free to log out. I'm totally fine with that. I really respect your time, and I know this is tough for everybody. So right off the bat, what I'd love to do is just have you guys introduce yourself, just real quick. This isn't really to start with a bang like you would do in a workshop. I just like to know, just so we can put names with faces, if you could just introduce yourself and tell us where you're from, and if you just want to tell us like one interesting thing about yourself, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with sports. Just something that we can put a name association with. So if you want to tell us something about your background, that's fine, or sports, or just that you have a 2-year-old helping in on this call, that's fine too. So if we can start, I'm just going to go right down the line. Darren, do you mind introducing yourself first?
Sure. Hi, guys. My name's Darren McMains. I'm the Peak Performance Giants, and right now I do have a 16-month-old that will be vying for my attention as we get through this hangout. So
perfectly fine with us. No problem. Hillary, go ahead.
Good morning, guys. My name is Hillary Bach. I'm in San Francisco working for the Pac-12 Conference. Originally from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and now finding my way out west.
Cool. So you live in California now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, cool. Hold on 1 second. Somebody said they can hear me and they can see me, but they're not on the call. Patience. Okay, I don't see you on our... Some people click on the YouTube link, I think, and they get sent to the YouTube recording right away, so they're watching this, but they're not actually involved. Okay, let's go to Josh. Go ahead. I think your microphone might be muted. We can't hear you. Can you go up to the top and see if your microphone's muted? Okay, now it's muted. Try it again. Patience. Okay, I don't see you on our... Some people click on the YouTube link, I think, and they get sent to the YouTube recording right away, so they're watching this, but they're not actually involved. All right. Okay. Let's go to Josh. Go ahead. Hold on. I think your microphone might be muted. We can't hear you. This is being double played, isn't it? To the top, see if your microphone's muted. What's going on? All right, hold on. Stay there. I'm going to log out. Patience. Okay, I don't see on our... Some people click on the YouTube link, I think, and they get sent to the YouTube recording right away, so they're watching this, but they're not actually involved. All right. Okay. Let's go to Josh. Okay. Hold on. I think your microphone might be muted. We can't hear you. This is being double played, isn't it? To the top, see if your microphone's muted. What's going on? All right, hold on. Stay there. I'm going to log out. Patience. Okay, I don't see on our... Some people click on the YouTube link, I think, and they send it to the YouTube recording right away, so they're watching this, but they're not... All right, okay. Let's go to Josh. Okay. Hold on. I think your microphone might be muted. We can't hear you. This is being double played. Isn't it? To the top, see if your microphone's muted. What's going on? All right, hold on. Stay there. I'm going to allow your mouth. Patience. Okay, I don't see on our... Some people click on the YouTube link, I think, and send it to the YouTube recording right away, so they're watching this. Double play. Is somebody's computer running the YouTube version or something? Can you guys hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay. It sounds like somebody's is running like the YouTube version because there's a 10-second delay. I'm not sure what's going on here. All right. We were trying to start with Joshua. Can you hear us, Josh? Okay, we can't hear you. Okay, that's okay. Sometimes if you log out and log back on, try that or check your microphone. I'm going to switch over to Patrick, who I was very impressed was the first one on. Good job. Can you hear us, Patrick? Patrick? Put your thumb up if you guys can hear me. Okay, Patrick is smiling, but I don't think he can hear me for some reason. Okay, you can. Can you speak, Patrick, so we can hear you? I can't hear him. All right, sorry, we're going to skip over to Steve. Steve, can you hear us? Oh, this is fun. Tim, how about you?
I don't know. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you. Yay!
Okay. My name's Tim Maxey. I'm the Strength and Conditioning Coordinator for the Baseball Players Association, and I've always been. I was actually introduced to PCA probably. Actually, by Mark Romero, the general manager and president of the Cleveland Indians. So, I've been involved with that for the last few years and utilizing some of its concepts just in youth training and youth baseball. Obviously, is a very important part of what Major League Baseball needs and looks at, and just some of the experiences that a lot of the kids were having and the stats that indicate that a lot of them leave the game at only 12, 13 years old and facing athletic time. It just kind of had us interested and had me interested, and I have a passion for it. So that's why I'm here.
All right. Well, thanks. And what's your hometown?
Cleveland. I live in Cleveland.
Okay. All right. So as you can see, we've got a plethora of people from loads of places. Some of these calls, we're going to have up to 15 people on them probably at times. So I think the best way to do it is if you guys wouldn't mind if you mute your microphones, and then if I call on you or if you have a question, you can unmute it. Or in the case of Josh and Patrick, you guys are muted anyway, so you can make as much noise as you need to, which is totally fine. We'll get the hang of this. It's a technology nightmare for some people, and then as soon as we get on, it could be just that your settings on your computer aren't set right to do the microphone or whatever it is. But I appreciate your patience. 10 minutes is not bad. The first time I did this course way back last April, it took us like 25 minutes just to get everybody on the first time. So as you can see, we do record these calls so that if for some reason you have to go, you can come in later. We also have Lisa Bernard, who's somehow in on this call. She can watch us and see us, but she's not in on it. So hi, Lisa, to everyone else too. All right, I'm going to get started right away. Unless the first thing I was going to do is ask, since I have all of you in front of me, do any of you have any questions? And Lisa, feel free to join in from texting me because I'm getting your text. I think there's a chat on here too. If you go on, it is one of the blue, there's a blue little icon up on the left-hand side of your screen. You guys can chat, and I can see like a little speech bubble pop up, and you guys can talk that way if you have any questions. So Hillary, I see you put Go PCA, so that worked out too. So I'll leave that open in case any of you have questions or you want to say something. That will work out fine. Do any of you have any questions with the way the course is going to be run, or requirements, or the end of the process, or anything like that that I can answer right off the bat before we get started into the content today? All right. Excellent. And Patrick Manson is here too. Patrick Manson, I guess you can hear us too? I guess so. Okay, cool. Well, here's what we're going to do today. First of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about some content and what it takes to be a trainer for Positive Coaching Alliance. How many of you have never been to a PCA coaches workshop? Raise your hand. Okay, some of you have not. Okay, Well, if you haven't, they're a lot different than a lecture, and that's one of the things that we stress right away. There's a reason that it's a workshop, because people are so tired at the end of the day. Most coaches that you're going to be talking to have other careers, or they're teachers, and they've come from practice, and they've done something else before this, and most workshops are either early Saturday mornings or probably 7 o'clock on a weeknight. So keeping that in mind, as soon as you come in and people see a PowerPoint presentation, right away you've pretty much lost your audience, because they're thinking, I do not want to sit here, and a lot of times it's mandatory, for another 2 hours and be lectured at about how to be a better coach. Because a lot of them, and some of you know in coaching, a lot of coaches think that they're doing a great job and they're doing fine. So I just want to put that out there right off the bat. What other challenges, as someone that's going to be sharing the message of positive coaching with an audience of people that have never heard of this before, what are some of the other challenges or pushbacks you think you might get right off the bat from people? And you can unmute or raise your hand if you want and share. Unfortunately, with Hangouts, if 2 people are talking at once, it'll pick whoever talks first. So what are some of the challenges you think you might have as a trainer? Go ahead, Darren.
Well, I think probably the initial pushback would probably be just, you don't know my sport. I think would probably be, it's like, oh, this is a baseball guy, and these are football coaches and volleyball coaches or whatever. So, the good thing about the message is obviously it's athletes and it's performance psychology, so it carries over in all, obviously, sports, but I think that'd probably be an initial pushback a little bit.
Sure, absolutely. And that's huge. One of the first workshops I did was for, I had 17 football coaches, high school, like this was football coaching staff at a high school. And I walked in there, and right off the bat, they're like, what does this girl know about football? So that's something really important to be aware of, that they might look at you and go, you're a baseball guy. What do you know about basketball? What do you know about? One of our great trainers down in Texas, huge, 6'7" basketball coach, and he actually had to do a cheerleading workshop. And he said it was a very good experience for him to do a workshop with a bunch of cheerleading coaches. So what else? What other challenges do you think you might have as a trainer? Oh, okay, Joshua, thanks. I've heard this stuff and I know it already. Yeah, I call that, a lot of it is like the folded arms. When you walk into a room and you get a lot of the folded arms, like, yeah, this is not what I want to hear. Exactly. Good point. Lisa says coaches can be resistant to change, and this can be out of their comfort zone, which again is a great point to make. It's very hard to teach an old dog new tricks. It sounds cliche, but especially when you get coaches that have been in the coaching business for 40 years and they say, yeah, look at all the banners on the wall. You think you're going to teach me something different. What about setting the tone right away then for what we're about to do? You guys have obviously read the book and you know what our mission is. How would you set the tone for these coaches right off the bat so that all of these kind of challenges and pushbacks are sort of not an issue? Do you have any ideas? Yes, Darren, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at it. Yeah, I don't know. I think probably be to connect with them on that level right there. Like, look, let them know I know what you're probably thinking. Maybe go down that road, or even say, hey, I'm not here to tell you how to coach. I'm here to tell you how to develop better people.
Yep.
Would probably be a couple things you can maybe start out with just to connect with them on those levels potentially. Exactly.
I think the key word that you said is perfect, is connect. You have to connect to your audience, and those 2 things that you just said are exactly what I do. I tell them, number 1, I was where you were. I sat there with a chip on my shoulder. I did not want to hear what this person had to say. I was a very competitive athlete. I was a competitive coach, and the last thing I wanted to hear was everybody gets a trophy, everybody wins, let's be soft, let's just relax, and it's all about fun. Because that's really what I thought a Positive Coaching Alliance workshop was going to be about. So one of the things I do right away is I ask, what do you think positive coaching is all about? When you hear the term positive coaching, what are you expecting to hear? Patrick says, questions to get them thinking, involve them in some way. Yeah, absolutely. What do you think if I put that out there to you? What do you think you're going to hear today if our organization is called the Positive Coaching Alliance? What are you expecting?
I think, yeah, I'll try it. I think the initial feedback that I've received so far is that it's like, well, it's just all you're going to do is say, hey, like you said, everyone gets a trophy. It's not about competition. It's not about the scoreboard, which it's really not. But in their mind, is like, oh, it's just another way of a soft way of trying to get our athletes to perform. When it really is a performance psychology department, or it really gives you the tools in order to help manage your players to maximize their individual full potential. But the initial pushback is that they just feel like, well, this is really, it's really competing, but competing the right way, and it gives you the tools to do that.
Thanks, Tim. And you know, you hit the nail on the head too. We always say that the goal of this workshop is to get the best performance out of your athletes. We are a performance-based, research-based, performance-driven workshop. And as soon as people hear that, like, oh, performance, I want to do better, and we are all about winning. Winning is so crucial. Winning is an important tool. It's not everything, and we're going to redefine winning today and what that means and how you can have a win for all of your athletes, and it doesn't necessarily always mean the win on the scoreboard. And I usually say, too, how many of you have an undefeated season your entire life of coaching? And, you know, you never get that. But there's something in you that makes you come back season after season. So we talk about that a lot. So right off the bat, I just wanted to put that out there. The next thing I'd like to go over, and I'm going to go over how I sort of introduce my workshops and how I start. But one of the things that PCA has created is the SMAC recipe, we call it, and this was in, I think, the first week discussion. I sent this to you. This SMAC recipe stands for systematic, methodical, and consistent, and we've borrowed it from Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. And what it is it's a systematic approach to, if, as a PCA trainer, you can do these 11 things, it's going to be a great workshop. So I'm just going to go through them pretty quickly so that you have an idea of what our expectations are from you, and then we'll break it down and we'll start talking about the first 10 slides. Stop me anytime. Okay, Steve, I'm sorry, I can't read and talk at the same time. Can you guys see all the chats that are going on the side? Okay, good. All right. Introduce yourself to your prior coaching experience. I've been in your shoes. Yep, good. Okay, so the SMAC recipe starts with this. Number one, knowing content cold. And that is 100% of the challenge right off the bat. That's why this course was created. By the time you guys are done these 6 weeks, you're going to know the content of double goal coaching inside and out. So content after we started this course has not been an issue. Believe it or not, the biggest challenge to new trainers is their pace. Trying to get in everything you want to say and every story you want to do in an hour's time or an hour and a half that you have for this workshop. A lot of times when people start out, they think, oh my gosh, you know, this is 2 hours. How can I fill this? And one of the first critiques we always say is you've got to keep it moving. You've got to hone your stories down. You've got to be quicker with your, you know, what you're doing. The second one for the SMAC recipe, and I don't know, I'm just going to read it to you if you guys don't have it right in front of you, but reaching out to the partner ahead of time. Now, every time an organization, a youth organization, or a school joins with PCA as a partner, they are told, they're told that these are the workshops, this is what we have to offer, and they're told a lot of background of PCA. Why do you think it's so important that personally, as the trainer that's going to be going to this organization, that you reach out ahead of time? What do you think is most important to find out? We call it the 3-day ahead call. What are some questions you would want to ask the organization leader that you're going to be talking to? Anybody can jump in.
Your audience, who your audience is.
Who your audience is, exactly. Keep going, Hillary. What else would you want to know?
I want to know where I'm going. Can we start there? Where we're going, who I should meet with when I get there, what my audience is, what are their big concerns or questions or hot topics right now, what they're really worried about.
Good, exactly, and that's what Josh said too. Motivation. Why are you connected with PCA? Why did you seek us out in the first place? And logistics, I always say, you're right, get that right off the bat. What room am I going to? Because you'll get a printout, you'll get an email sent to you before every workshop that you do, and the logistics might not be the same. And you might see something that says auditorium, and you end up being in a gym. And it makes a big difference. So that call is so crucial. Exactly. Why are they connected to PCA? Why are they reaching out? And especially since our workshop, the Double Goal Coach 1 PowerPoint that I sent you is the basic PowerPoint. But I'm going to tell you there are ways to customize it a bit and add in certain videos and maybe change some of the different videos around and change the order of slides around. In the beginning, I suggest you keep with the basic. But I had a group yesterday that was very, very concerned about hazing at their high school. So I decided to add in a few extra slides and a few extra videos we had available about hazing and the issues going on. And coincidentally, it was in New Jersey. So a lot of the hazing issues are really relevant to those kids. So it was great to be able to do that. If I wouldn't have called ahead of time, I would have just done the basic athlete workshop. So it is really important. Lisa says, what's their goal for the workshop? What do you expect to get out of this workshop, which is great too. Darren?
Yeah, quick question. When you said you found some hazing videos, do you guys have like a catalog of videos that we can go pick up those, or are we responsible for finding those?
Yep, we do. We have a PCA trainer share Google folder, and in that it says approved videos. Approved meaning PCA has permission to use them. And basically all the videos that we have are either ones that PCA took themselves, like in a professional studio with a lot of professional coaches and athletes or collegiate coaches, or they're ones that we've gotten permission from ESPN to use or CNN or whatever the news story was. So if you ever have anything to add in yourself, the system is that you do need to get approval before we use it. We have to give credit where credit is due. So, but there's probably about 50 different video clips in there that you can use. And most of them too are just videos that we use in different workshops. And just being trained in the coaching workshop, you might not understand that there's a whole slew of videos just for parents or a whole slew of videos just for athletes. So yeah, good question. All right, I'm not trying to cut anybody off, but I'm trying to keep going here. So stop me if you want me to add anything else. All right, next one. Arriving early, that's just kind of goes without saying. 30 minutes early is the minimum to get there ahead of time to set up. As I said, I always expect that something's going to go wrong, so you've got to get there early. Number 4 on this recipe is being game ready. You're probably going to be presenting these workshops at the end of your long day as well. And one of the things that I found so impressive, there's a trainer called named Al Strachan, and he drove down for a 2-hour ride to do an athlete workshop with me about a year ago. And he drove down from New Jersey. I'm sorry, I think he was in New York. New York or North? I think New York. And he drove down in 2 hours worth of snow that took him about 4 hours to get to this school in Westchester, Pennsylvania, to do this workshop. And he was telling me himself, oh, the traffic was terrible, and I was so, it was just so tough, and this didn't work, and that didn't work, and he was telling this all to me. Well, when he got there and met the partner, he was as calm and happy as you can be, and he shook the woman's hand, and she said, oh, how was your trip? And he said, it was wonderful, thank you so much. And I was so impressed, but I thought, if he walked into that and said, oh, traffic was bad, it took me 4 hours for a 2-hour ride, it would have completely changed the tone. So number 4 on here, being game ready, really that hit home with me, that you've got to get yourself psyched up, you've got to be ready, and you've got to be into it no matter what kind of a day you had as well, because your tone really does change the tone of the workshop. The 5th one says start with a bang. This is something that I'm going to go over today, and start with a bang means that within the first 5 minutes of the workshop, you need to have multiple audiences in the room engaged, because if you lose the attention of the audience within the first 5 minutes, you're going to lose them for the next hour. So one of the biggest curses that I think I did in the beginning and a lot of new trainers do is we talk way too much. You guys can tell I'm a talker. But what we want to do is get as many people engaged as possible. If you're sitting in a 2-hour-long workshop at the end of the day and you are just listening, you're going to tune out. You might only pick up 10% of what's said. Does anybody know the percentage if you're actually actively involved in doing it, how much information you're going to retain if you're involved? They say between 40 and 50%, you'll remember. So that's just the teacher background in me. So anything you can do. Also, asking one person a question, like if I say, Hillary, tell me about the most influential coach you ever had, and we're in a room of 50 coaches. How many people are engaged? Show me with your fingers. Right, myself and Hillary. So I've got a room of 50 people, I've only engaged 2 people. Plus the fact that everybody else in the audience is going, oh crap, I hope she doesn't call on me, because I don't want to be cold called like that. But if I said, all right, I'd like you to stand up if you have had a coach in your life that you still remember years later had an impact on you, and you've used some of the things that they've said in your daily life. I'd like you to stand up. All right, how many people did I just get involved? Everyone, or the people that were going to stand up at least. So little things like that. I've had a lot of people say, oh, I ask a lot of questions. You do ask a lot of questions, but you're still only asking one-to-one, and everybody else is still sleeping around you. So keep that in mind. All right. Next part. That also goes with the 6th one, which is involving and validating participants. It's very important. People feel nervous, just like you did when you were a kid and you were in school and you didn't want the teacher to call on you. Adults are even worse. So there's nothing worse than you asking a question and hearing dead silence. So if you ask a question, make sure that it's a question that's going to be something that the person doesn't have to know, like a quiz. I'm not asking you for a quiz. So tell me about this, tell me about that. What I'm doing is asking them to share, to make it interactive, turn to a partner, share with a group, whatever it can do. And if somebody's brave enough to share an answer, some of the most important things you could do at a workshop, like when Tim just shared there, say, Tim, that was great. I'm so glad you brought up that point. Just something to validate what he's saying, brings everybody else at ease, and then someone else might be more willing to participate later. A lot of you that are into public speaking already, you probably already know these things, but I just repeat it like you've all never spoken to anybody in your life. So, all right, I'm going to stop there with the SMAC recipe because the other ones have to do with making the book a lasting resource, honing your stories, addressing winning, and we're going to go over those a little bit later. All right, questions on that right off the bat? Okay, flag me down if I'm going too fast. Okay, so to start off, right off the bat, when I do a workshop, the very first thing I want to do is, as I said, get the audience calm and ready to go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the first 10 slides as if I were presenting this Double Goal Coach workshop, and I probably have about, 5 different versions of stories that I tell in the beginning of the workshop. So right now at this point, I'm going to assume that you guys are 10 youth coaches with multiple sports background, okay? So if I ask you a question as a presenter, I'm going to ask that you guys just assume the role of a youth coach, and whatever sport you have background in, that's what I'm going to ask you to answer. Okay, so this is something that I'm going to ask you guys to do as we go through the course. We're going to go through some of the different principles, and the first half of the call, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to show you how I do it, and then the second half of the call, I'll say, all right, who would like to try to demo it for us? So it seems a little quirky at first because we're presenting to a computer screen, but it really is effective, and it gives you a way to just try things out. And I know it's weird, and some people are like, oh, I'm so nervous, I don't want to do this. This is not for grading or testing. You all are obviously here for a reason. You all have a fantastic sports background, and someone along the line in PCA thought you would make a great trainer. So I always say that you're all starting with an A right off the bat, and you're all going to keep an A as long as you're in here. So don't worry about that. Just trying to get the ideas out and getting feedback is something that's kind of hard for people sometimes. So I asked for feedback too. What did you like about what I did? What did you not like about what I did? So I'm going to start out if that's okay. If you have this up, that's great. If not, this is the PowerPoint that I shared with you. This is the very first slide that shows up. Right off the bat, one of the things that I did, I switch it, and I think we're going to switch it in the ones we send to you. This is the very first slide that I have coming up when people walk into the room. We don't do paper sign-in sheets here at PCA. We do text to sign in, and sometimes just having that up on the screen, people will sign in before they even come in. This is how text to sign in works. We have partnered with a group called Sport Up, and they have an app that every trainer has downloaded on their phone, and it has all the workshops that PCA does. Every workshop is linked to a number. So right off the bat, I have this slide up, and I will put the number right here of the workshop that I'm going to be doing. So I will ask everybody, right when it starts, the partner will introduce me. They might read my bio, and I'd say, okay, thank you. Before we get started, I'd like everyone to take out their smartphone, and we're going to text to sign in here. It's a much quicker way to do it, and the cool thing is that you automatically get put into our database, and the only email that we send you is 4 times a year we send you an e-newsletter called Momentum. We would love for you guys to go onto our website and sign up for some more offers that we have for you. We have talking points, we have weekly sports quotes, but at this point, we're just going to get you in our database, which can bring you some great resources. So I'm going to ask you all to text to this number, 650-763-2405. And what I'm going to ask you to text is the number of this workshop, which would be 555-1212, whatever it is, your first name and last name, and your email address, and then hit send. If you do it correctly, you're going to get a response back that says, thank you, welcome to PCA. If you didn't do it correctly, you won't get anything back. If you don't have a smartphone, I'm going to ask you to borrow your neighbors or come see me after this course, and after this workshop, and I'll sign you in. So that's text to sign in. This actually just started in August, and it's pretty awesome because we used to get, people that scribble down their name and scribble down their email address, and you couldn't read it. So this has been very, very effective at getting a lot of people into the database quickly. So I switched that to my first slide. All right, next one. Okay, let's talk about this. Thank you all for coming. This is a Double Goal Coach workshop. My name is Kelly Kratz, and I want to just let you all know that I sat where you were in March of 2009. I sat in a workshop that I was told I had to be at. I was a youth lacrosse coach, and at the time, I was coaching my daughter's 3rd grade lacrosse team. And I have to say, from my sports background, I had a little difficulty when they told me I had to come to this workshop because I was an elementary school teacher. And before I was a teacher, I was a very, very competitive athlete. I went to St. Joseph's University in Philadelphia. I played Division I field hockey and Division I lacrosse. I was a three-sport athlete in high school. And I kind of was having trouble when I first started coaching third grade because it was the early 90s. And I don't know how many of you were raising kids or growing up or around a lot of people in the early 90s, but this was the push of the positive movement. How many of you, when you were kids and played Little League, how many of you remember everybody getting a trophy and everybody winning just for participating? Does anybody remember that from being a kid? No, I see a lot of heads shaking. How many of you that are older now that maybe have kids that are playing are noticing that kids are getting ribbons and trophies and awards just for participating? Anybody noticing that now? Yeah, I noticed it too. When I was first teaching third grade, I even talked to the gym teacher the first week of class, and I said, oh, can I come to gym class? And he looked at me kind of strange, and I said, I'd love to go to elementary gym class. Well, I got down to the gym, and I said, what are you playing today? And he said, oh, we're doing a game called Snowball Fights. I'm like, well, that sounds like fun. What is it? And he said, we have these big pom-poms. And I get the kids into two teams, and they throw pom-poms at each other, and when they get hit, they have to stand there and freeze like a snowman. And then someone else on their team runs over and tags them, and then they're not frozen anymore, and then we keep playing. And I said, well, it kind of sounds like wimpy dodgeball. And he said, oh, shh, you can't say that word. We can't play dodgeball anymore. It's way too competitive. And I said, well, when you get hit with the pom-pom, is there like a loser's jail? Like, remember that whole loser's jail, and you had to like throw it and you nail somebody in the head and then they get out of jail? And he said, that's way too competitive. We can't do that anymore. So then I find out I used to run a lot of the activities in my classroom based on competition. We would do math games and spelling games and around the world. And my principal actually came to me and he said, one of the parents is complaining that your classroom's a little too competitive and their son is not winning a lot and he's having trouble with this. And then I noticed later, I go out to recess and these kids weren't playing sports at recess. They weren't playing kickball. They weren't playing football like I remember. And I asked some of the kids and I said, what's going on? How come you're not playing? And they said, well, we don't have a coach. We don't have a referee. We don't know how to play. I said, well, what about picking teams? And they said, well, we're not allowed to pick teams anymore. We're not allowed to just have two captains and pick teams because somebody gets their feelings hurt. So this was my first experience in the early 90s right out of college, and I'm thinking, what is going on? Then I had kids, and I started coaching my daughter's soccer team when she was 6. When she was 6 years old, she played soccer. They didn't even keep score, and at the end of this season, she received a trophy that was about 1.5 feet high, and she came home, and she was so proud of this trophy that she won. And I said to myself, in a 6-year-old league where they don't even keep score, my daughter thinks that she won and earned a trophy that was bigger than my state championship trophy in field hockey my senior year in high school. So when I was told I had to come to a positive coaching workshop, I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder because I was feeling like competition was being taken out of the world. How many of you find in the real world today, in your careers and what you're doing, that it's not about competition, that everybody is a winner? That everybody gets paid the same amount, whether you perform well or whether you don't. Does anybody have that in their career right now? Nobody. Nobody's hands are up. Life is about competition. The point that I learned as I sat through this 2-hour workshop is, as a coach, there is a way to bring out the best in your kids. There is a way to have competition. There is a way to develop winners and teach kids that losing is not a failure. Losing is not who they are. Losing is an opportunity to learn something. And so in the next 2 hours, I'm hoping to enlighten you. I'm not going to teach you how to do your sport better. I'm not going to teach you about the X's and the O's. We're based on a lot of research and a lot of psychology. So this is going to be a night where you're going to be hopefully opening your mind a little bit to some things you've never heard of before. Now, right off the bat, what I'd like to do, and you guys obviously on the screen don't have to do this, but this is what I do. When I say go, I'm going to have you stand up, and I'm going to create a U-shaped timeline in this room. So if any of you are coaching for, this is your first year of coaching, I'm going to have you stand on this side of the room. If you've been coaching between 0 and 5 years, you're going to stand up next to them, 5 to 10 years next to them, 10 to 20 years next to them, and then if you've been coaching for 20 plus years, you're going to be on this side of the room. So when I say go, I'm going to have you all stand up, and when you get there, I'd like you to introduce yourself to the person next to you, and then look up at the screen. I have a question for you to talk about. Ready? Go. So everybody gets up out of their seat. They create a timeline across the room. They introduce themselves to the person next to them. So I've already got, it's been 5 minutes, I told my story, I introduced PCA, and everybody's up and out of their seats already. So then, now, if there are, I always say, if there are 25 or less coaches at your workshop, I will take the time then to have every person introduce themselves and tell me their name, what they coach, and how many years they've been coaching. Why do you think I do that? It takes a lot of time. Why do you think that's important to do that at a workshop? Any ideas? Tim, why do you think I would do that?
Well, obviously, we probably want to. I mean, it's a way to break the ice and get them engaged. You're going to see the diversity of the room. You're going to know you as a speaker are going to have a better understanding of what your audience is and where they come from as well, and their different levels of coaching. So engagement would be critical, I think, is particularly at that small of a level. So
yep, absolutely.
You would do it.
That's exactly why I do it. So I know who I'm talking to. I know what sports are in the room. And number two, it validates who's in the audience. I've never met a coach that's coached for 30 years that doesn't want to tell you what they've coached and how long they've coached. It gives them a chance to say, I have been a football, baseball, wrestling, and basketball coach. This is my 34th season. And they always add in there, and we've got 6 state championships. I mean, they do. People like to tell. It gives them a chance to share a little bit and brag a little bit, and I congratulate them for that. Now, if you've got like 30 or more coaches, sometimes I'll just have them turn to the person next to them, introduce yourself, and I'll sort of listen in around the room. Or if I know the sports that are in the room, I'll say, okay, raise your hand if you're my basketball coaches, and I'll be able to see. Or I'll say, okay, raise your hand if you've been coaching for 20 plus years, 10 plus years, something like that, just so I get a quick idea of who they are and what they coach. So at this point, I'm going to say to the audience, now you're the audience again, all right, now I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to think about who was the most influential coach in your life and why. And I just leave it at that. And I'm going to ask you to turn to the person next to you that's been coaching about the same amount of years that you have, and I'm going to ask you for about 1 minute to talk to that person about who was the most influential coach in your life and why. Okay? Go. So they talk amongst themselves for about a minute, and then what I would say is something to the effect of, all right, one of the things we like to do in PCA is to teach some lessons that you can walk out of this room and use tomorrow with your team. And one of the things I find when I coach youth is that they are very, very so excited to talk about themselves, not so much about learning about what other people are doing. One of the things on my team, I find my best teams are the ones that the kids are aware of what each other are doing. So what I'm going to ask you to do here today is not tell me your story of your most influential coach, but I want you to share a story that someone just told you. And then I might ask real quick, how is this effective in your practices? How can this help your team? So I'm going to ask you guys, if I have you listen to what somebody else is saying, how can that help your team? I was going to call on Josh, but we can't hear you. Hillary, what do you think? How can that help your team?
I think if you're teaching me to listen to my teammates, it's already going to make me a better teammate, and it's going to make me a better leader, too. If I understand the people around me, what's going on in their lives, I can help them better.
Right. So in your practice or whatever you're coaching, when would you use that tactic? When would you want your players to listen to each other?
Well, communication drills, like if we're working on just getting relays in from the outfield, I want them communicating. I want them understanding where they are in the field and how they need to communicate before the play and then during and then after. Yeah, absolutely. Good example. Good example. Okay. I was trying to read the text. Okay. So, and I'll throw that out there. Somebody give me, and I like to make these workshops as real life as possible. So anytime you can get from the audience, let's hear a real life example of where you would use that, because people's wheels are already turning. Like, oh, that is a good idea. How would I use that in practice tomorrow? Oh yeah, I might use that when we're doing communication drills in the outfield. So that makes it tangible. It makes them be able to connect to it. So then, okay, I would say, can I have a brave audience volunteer that could share for me the story somebody told them about their most influential coach? Would any of you want to share your story about the most influential coach you ever had in your life and why, just for a couple minutes for the sake of this course here in this call? Somebody preferably we can hear. Sorry. Darren or Hillary or Tim? Okay, I submit you guys are still muted. You have to unmute. That's okay.
Yeah, are we working?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, honestly, I think it was probably a Little League coach. Was having a bad experience in Little League, and I was fortunate enough to play high school and college, and honestly, it was the Little League coach had one of the bigger influences on me just from a confidence level. So he was just his enthusiastic attitude, his specific feedback just kind of took the chains off of me and allowed me to play. Just kind of allowed the flow of the game to go, and I was able to really just kind of excel under his tutelage.
That's really cool. Are there things that you use today, Tim, that you model after that coach that you had?
Well, I try to, and I have in my coaching career tried to do that. Where, I think I sent a note to you. It's just, 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 5-to-1, ideally in terms of specific feedback and kind of putting the person first instead of the result. I think has been effective for me. Just individualizing programs for each player as an example, and kind of understand what their motivation is for playing the game, and just I think confidence is obviously such a monster, but you got to be able to pull that out of them and allow it to happen for them and flow for them. So.
All right, thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. So I would have 2 or 3 other people share. If the first two people share about a positive experience, I would say, wow, that coach really sounds like he was quite a mentor for you. Does anybody have an example of a coach that we call a tormentor, not your mentor? Did anybody have a story of a coach that was influential in their life because of a negative experience? And I like to bring those up too, because a lot of times that can mold the kind of coach you are, or in a positive way, because you can say, oh, I know how that coach made me feel, and I don't want to be like that. Or a lot of times coaches coach the way they were coached. And at some point, you have to say to yourself, you know what? This might have gotten us results on the scoreboard for that season, but I didn't enjoy going to practice. I didn't like the way it made me feel. That coach used fear to motivate me, and I don't want to do that to my players. So sometimes thinking about breaking the cycle of I'm just coaching the way I was coached and it worked, because when those coaches are tormentors like that and then come to me and say, well, we won the state championship, I always say to those coaches, I think you won the state championship in spite of the way you coach, not because of the way you coach. And it's a fine line to really think about. The reason we bring up this question is because at some point you're going to stop coaching, and the kids that you're having an influence on right now maybe will become coaches someday. And maybe they'll be sitting in a workshop like this someday, and I will ask them, who is the most influential coach in your life and why? So the bigger question is, how do you want to be remembered as a coach? This is your chance to have such a great influence on these players. So what I'm going to ask you to do, the very front cover of the Double Goal Coach book is empty. And I'd like you to write down one sentence on how you'd like to be remembered as a coach by the players that you touch every day. And I'll have everybody just take a minute just to write that down in their book. And one of the things that I ask is that you don't share that right now. But what I'm going to ask you to do is write that down somewhere on a sticky note, on a piece of paper. Sometimes I'll bring a pack of sticky notes to the workshop and I'll have them available. Write down how you want to be remembered. And keep that on your clipboard, on your coach's clipboard every day. And at any time during practice or after practice, if you are just having one of those days where you are frustrated, you planned the best practice plan and those kids just didn't listen, they were out of control, they weren't paying attention, look down at how you want to be remembered. And if you wanted to be remembered for a coach that really cared and made sure it was fun and made everybody feel good about themselves, and you look at that and go, yeah, that's not really how I coach today. It probably reflected the behavior of your players. So I think that's a really valuable tool that someone asked me to do at a PCA workshop many years ago, and it definitely changed the way that I coached. I'm going to show you a video. Now this for you guys, there's 2 different choices here. We have a Kevin Durant video and we have a Steve Young video. Kevin Durant just won the MVP award for the NBA last year. So if you're doing a basketball workshop or if you're doing a workshop with younger coaches that would be able to relate to Kevin Durant, you can show that one. Another one the one that I'd like to show is Steve Young.
It's most impacted, I think, by the first couple of coaches that you see in your youth sports. That's how you start to model in your mind how you deal with adversity, how you deal with the team, how I fit within the team, all those concepts. And so I think my coaches, the most influential coaches, my first couple, who are parent volunteers.
How cool is that? You've got somebody that plays all the way up through NFL All-Star, and who does he credit for the success in his career, in his football history? The first couple coaches. So I actually had a unique experience when I graduated from college. I was asked to coach at Arcadia University. I was asked to coach basketball. So I was young, and I started right out of college coaching at the collegiate level. Well, then after I got a teaching job, I started coaching high school level. And then when I had my kids, I started coaching 6-year-olds. So I've had people laugh and say, oh, you got a demotion. But in my eyes, thinking about the effect that I would have on 6-year-olds, I think it was a stronger effect than I had on the college level kids. And all of you as coaches, I've heard coaches say before, oh, I just coach 8 and unders, or I just coach 10 and unders. And you get somebody like Steve Young who credits the success and the way he thought about the game to his first couple coaches. You have a bigger influence than you think you do. Let me just give you some history of PCA here. This is just a quick Google map. Positive Coaching Alliance is a nonprofit organization that started in 1998 out of Stanford University. And you guys have the notes at the bottom of your slide, so you can read this too, but this is just how I present it. And it started out of the Stanford University Athletic Department because a man named Jim Thompson was seeing that the culture of youth sports wasn't what it should be. And he saw kids crying on the sidelines, and he saw parents that were berating referees, and he saw a lot of behaviors that he didn't like. And sports, he felt there's no better place to learn the lessons in life that can make you successful than sports. That's where he drew upon for his success. So he got together with people at Stanford University, and he started looking into research, and he was asking the professors there, have you done any research studies on motivation? And he talked to the coaches there, and he talked to some players there to find out, why are you an elite player? Why didn't you quit? What's up with you? Why are you still in this, and why are you successful? So just to give you an idea so that you know, we are expanding rapidly, and you're not going to see our commercials during the Super Bowl. We're expanding because the message that we're sending is making a difference in kids' lives, and it's word of mouth, and people are spreading the word about Positive Coaching Alliance. So these are 11 of our chapters all over the country, just to give you an idea, and our hope is that in the next 10 years to expand it to at least 10 to 15 more chapters all over the country. We also are an alliance meaning we can't do it by ourselves, and because we are a nonprofit, a lot of the money that you pay to have us come here barely even pays for the trainer to be in front of you right now. So we have a lot of great corporate sponsors, and the cool thing about these corporate sponsorships are that a lot of these make it mandatory for coaches that play AAU or Pop Warner or US Lacrosse. The coaches that are playing for those different organizations, they must go through Positive Coaching Alliance training. They feel that it's that important, and they're willing to give us a lot of money to get this movement started, which is fantastic. We also have a lot of really cool people behind us. Does anybody recognize anyone in this picture? These are our National Advisory Board members. And if you want to look on page 8 in your book, there's another brief list. This is a group of elite athletes, coaches, and people out here that are adding information all the time. It's constantly being updated, constantly changing, and we have people that are asking us if they can be on our National Advisory Board. So I would have people call out, yeah, I recognize, Julie Foudy, Doc Rivers, Herm Edwards, Phil Jackson. A lot of people haven't heard of PCA before, and they think it's me, the trainer, telling them how to be a good coach. As soon as you show them that Phil Jackson is our national spokesperson, people perk up again, and they're like, wow, really? Get out of here. Yeah, why would our organization choose somebody like Phil Jackson? He's the best. Why not take the winningest coach in the NBA, a coach that could handle some changes? And Jim Thompson spoke to Phil Jackson and said, you know what, Phil, I want to get this program started. And Phil said, I'm all on board with it, Jim. I agree 100%. I think this is a great organization, and I'm going to stand behind you. None of this stuff is really going to work for professional basketball players, but I think for youth sports it's great. And Jim Thompson said, Phil, why don't you try it? Why don't you take a player of yours that's been really stubborn or you've had a lot of trouble connecting with, try to fill his tank for a week. Try to give him a 5-to-1 ratio of positives to criticisms and see if it makes a difference. Phil's like, all right, I'll give it 2 weeks. I'll give it a try. Well, Phil Jackson came back after 3 days and said the difference that I have seen in Horace Grant is unbelievable. Thanks, Jim. I disagree. This stuff can work at any level. So Phil Jackson's been on board, and he has just been a very, very committed spokesperson. The other person that I'm going to show you, we also try to recognize coaches like you that are out there doing what we're preaching every single day. So we give a National Double Gold Coach of the Year award, and about five or six of them are given out every year, and there's nominations. This is Kim Evers from Campo Lindo, California. She's a water polo coach, and she won it in 2010. So it's really cool. We have a banquet. We fly you out to California. There's a monetary award, and it's a great way to be recognized by your community for doing the things that we're asking you to do. And then this is the model, and I'm going to stop there because we're going to get into this next week. So that's pretty much the quick and skinny of the introduction to the workshops. I've done a heck of a lot more talking than you, but we do have about 10 minutes left. What I'd like to do is ask you guys, first of all, does anybody have any questions? Anything that you liked? Anything that you thought, well, I really didn't get that, or that wouldn't have connected with me or resonated with me? So you can unmute and ask me, or you can type in a question and I'll read it out loud for you if you have a question.
I think the U-shape was an awesome idea. Like from the very beginning, I was engaged. I'm learning about my audience. I thought that was really smart, and I hadn't seen that before.
Okay, cool, thanks. Could you guys relate to my story at all about not seeing competition, like competition sort of fading out? Did you like that? Because as I said, I don't use, but go ahead.
Yeah, Yeah, no, I like that a lot just because, yeah, I mean, I think that's, I mean, I guess I'll speak for myself. I mean, that's initially why I joined this movement too, you know. And I feel like most people that I've spoken with that sort of share the same concern, it's, you know, it's sort of the same type of deal where it's, you know, we see this and it's like, hey, what the heck is going on, you know? And I coach my son's flag football team, and I've coached him in t-ball and in soccer, and so I always have this tension of should I give trophies at the end, because the league gives them to me and half the parents expect them, you know. So yeah, this upcoming year, my if I get brave enough, I'm just going to tell the parents if we don't win it, they're not getting it, and see what happens. So I don't know. I'm still trying to think through that, but I thought
Yeah. I always say too, you know what? Trophies are fantastic if you give them for the right reasons. You know, giving a kid a trophy because he gets the effort award. You know, the effort award on my team is going to go to Ryan because he is just every single day out there, he gives 100% effort. That kid deserves a trophy for that. Not necessarily because Ryan has the best batting average or because we won. You know, so I don't think trophies in and of themselves are a bad thing. I just think what we give them for is kind of a bad thing. And we're going to talk about that later too. Thanks, Darren, for sharing that. Anybody else? Questions or comments on the first 10 slides, the intro, anything like that? Oh, Steve. Okay, Patrick said, I like your description of how a typical workshop starts. Okay. And then Steve says, I liked how you build a connection with the audience by talking about your personal sports background. All right. Thanks. One of the things that the audience, at the end of the workshops, we have the audience fill out an evaluation. And the evaluation says the best part of the workshop and a way to improve the workshop is. And every single time that I do a workshop, a lot of times they'll say the best part of the workshop was stories, the trainer's stories. That's what people remember. We just did a book club with the PCA staff, and it said it was Jonah Sachs' book, Winning the Story Wars, talking about how, you know, even marketing has changed to stories. It's something people can connect to. So that's why I like to tell my own stories, but I also like to share stories of other people. I'm the first one to say, I know a trainer down in Texas, and this is something that he went through. So if it's not a sport I'm knowing, like if I'm doing a football workshop, I will make sure that I have a couple football stories from other coaches I've seen or players I've seen. Okay, Lisa says, yes, on the competition, I think that can be where coaches may put up a wall, but you really help to explain the PCA is not about everyone wins, and that made sense. So she said that connected to her. All right. What I'm going to ask then, with the next 5 minutes, would any of you like to just give your opening spiel, just to try it out? Why are you here? Why are you connected to PCA? Hi, my name is, you know, Darren McMains, and, you know, let me tell you a little bit about why I'm passionate about PCA, or I'm just picking on you, Darren, but would any of you like to give it a shot in 5 minutes just to try it out and hear, you know, how I call it your passion story, your passion or your connection story, or why you're here. It's probably all the people that don't have a microphone right now. They're like, yeah, I do. I have speakerphone on my phone. You can call in. Somebody's calling in. I don't know who that is. Okay. Anybody? No. All right.
Well, I don't want to leave this thing and have everyone just be quiet. So
well, thanks. Peer pressure too.
I got guilted into it, I guess. No, you know, well, first of all, hi, my name's Darren McMains, and you know, ultimately, I joined PCA. I work with professional athletes on a daily basis, and part of my job is to help coach really perspective in the mental side. And the thing that I've realized throughout that time is, by the time they get to me, it's not impossible, but it's extremely difficult to get players to sort of make that adjustment when they realize that the thing that separated them at the beginning, which is talent, is no longer the separator. It simply makes them common and average. And so for me, the difference is the mental side and obviously the commitment to you know, nutrition and the physicality of strength and conditioning and those types of things. But the thing that really got me is I have a 7-year-old son and a 16-month-old daughter. And so when I saw how much our players are impacted by their coaches at the youth level and how much they're impacted by just simply the messages that they receive from the mentors and adults and coaches in their life and teachers, it really started to get me thinking, like, man, I need to focus. You probably hear my daughter in the background. Sorry. You know, it got me to really focus more on, wow, we need to make an impact at a younger level, because by the time they get to me, a lot of guys lose out on their dream and lose out on their passion to compete because it's over with, you know, and they just can't keep up. And the guys that were able to continue on are the guys that knew that their worth wasn't tied to their performance, are the guys that knew that, you know, obviously, I mean, the game that they play is they do it because they enjoy it, you know, and that's it, because it's something they got to do now every day. And so that actually got me to read Mindset, The New Psychology of Success by Carol Dweck, and it changed everything. It changed the way I coach. It changed the way that I parent. And I started looking at things, and it wasn't about getting the players to care less, but it's about getting them to care about the things that matter and the things they can control. And I think that's a huge change. And so for me, when I found out about PCA's mission, it was nothing but, oh my gosh, where was this? When my kid first started playing and those types of things, and now how can I take this to other people and impact the leagues that my kids are a part of?
That's great. Thank you very much. You guys that were just listening to Darren, what did you connect to what he said? What gave him credibility right off the top, would you say? What made you want to listen to him?
I think it was a really honest answer, and he told you that he's been in your shoes and he's coached at the very highest level, but then back to like family, he shared his family story. I have a 7-year-old and I'm caring about him, and I want to make sure his league and his life is good.
Good. And Patrick said he's sincere. Yeah, you can just tell by the way he talked. And also too, I mean, I always say give yourself credibility. You don't want to sit there and toot your own horn, but the fact that you're working with professional baseball players right now, like right off the bat, I'm like, all right, I want to hear what he has to say. And I think it is really cool the way you connected. You kind of get the guys when they're too late, and you wished you would have heard this before. And a lot of these guys would probably have benefited from hearing this message a long time ago. And we hear that theme a lot. A lot of trainers are trainers for PCA because they felt the exact same way. Either I wish I had this, or this message is just too important to not share it. So thank you. I appreciate that. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm gonna cut us off because I don't like to go. One of the things I also stress is that if you can end a workshop 5 minutes early, everybody will tell their friends how great of a workshop it was, whether they loved it or not. When I always stay very strict to the time. The other thing to remember is that as trainers, we have a message. The message that you just heard Darren talk about, he was talking about Carol Dweck. We talk about her in our workshops too, and different names and things that meant a lot to him. I've always said sometimes in the first couple minutes of your introduction, you've pretty much summarized what was important to you about this workshop that you're now going to talk to them about for the next 2 hours. So if you feel because of time that you want to skip, that you have to skip something or you have to go too quickly around something, we're not as concerned that you go slide by slide by slide. That's how you kill us all with death by PowerPoint. We're more concerned that the connection, the message, the passion is there in you, because that will translate to the audience, and that the coaches will leave the room with a whole lot of tools that can make them better coaches, and they can do their job proud. And they don't have to do, and not all coaches do their job proud. Sometimes coaches go home and, people are talking about them, or they don't want to be, they don't want to be doing what they're doing, or they feel worse about themselves. So this is one of the things that I always stress to trainers. Your message, your stories, and your passion are so important. Yes, do we want you to go through the slides? Absolutely. But if I had to pick one over the other, I'd rather hear your stories and your compassion, and your slides are there to support you. You're not there to support the slides. You are the magic in the room, and you are the reason that they want to hear what you have to say. And so that's why our live workshops are so effective. We have online courses, and people can read books and things like that. But the reason that partners continue their partnership in year 5 and year 6 is because of live trainers like you guys, and the stories that you share, and the interaction that you get people thinking about in the room. So that being said, my time is 1:01. Thank you guys very much for joining me. Hopefully we'll get some of the microphone glitches worked out. Those of you that are not, like Patrick and Lisa, I think you guys are watching the YouTube channel right now, which is the recording of this. You haven't actually joined the call. So we'll work that out with you before the next Hangout so that you can actually be a participant in this and not just watching on the YouTube channel. So thanks, guys, for coming. I'll be on for a couple of minutes. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to sit here for a few minutes. But the rest of you, enjoy, and we will see you. Well, Monday night is the next call. You guys don't have to be on that one. And then I sent out a schedule. I think the next one I'm doing is next Friday as well. And as I said, I usually like to keep it to, we usually do them Thursday afternoon and Monday night, but I have some workshops coming up on Thursday, so I bumped it to Friday. If it's a problem for anybody, let me know. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yep, absolutely.